In Holly Kaufman now from San Francisco. She is the director of the Plastics and Climate Project. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So as this UN Plastic Summit continues, attended by delegates from nearly 180 countries, how likely is it that they'll end up agreeing on a legally binding treaty to curb plastic pollution?
Well, we don't actually know yet. I was a negotiator on the UN climate treaty, and always at about this point in the negotiations, things would get bogged down, but you never really quite know what the outcome will be. With ministers from most of the countries arriving now, we're hoping that that puts more pressure on the negotiations so that they can come to an ambitious conclusion.
And Holly, how bad is plastic pollution across the globe, and what other action needs to be taken to stop plastic pollution or at least control it in some better way?
Well, I think it's first important to make a distinction between plastic pollution and plastic waste. Plastic waste is what tends to get all of the attention, and that's the visible chunks of plastic that we can see littering our environment. That in itself is a bad enough problem, but it's the microplastics that last forever, because plastic is constantly shedding, it's constantly breaking down, but it's a synthetic material made out of fossil fuels, and nature cannot absorb it. So even when it becomes microscopic, it lasts forever. And we are seeing that it is having tremendous human health, environmental health impacts, including climate change impacts.
Right, and of course, every year up to 23 million tonnes of plastic waste leaks into aquatic ecosystems, polluting lakes, rivers and seas. With so much plastic being dumped every single day, why isn't more of it being recycled or plastic substitutes being used instead?
Well, very good question. So to just continue with what I was saying before, there's a difference between waste and pollution. And pollution, all those little microplastics and the chemicals in them, last through the entire plastic's life cycle, which is a life cycle that never ends. And recycling is actually just another form of plastic production. Companies knew, in fact, a internal document from DuPont was just revealed the other day from the 1970s that said, we know that plastic recycling is not feasible. Plastics were never designed to be recycled, and most plastics can't be recycled. Even for the ones that can be, there aren't always recycling facilities. And plastics cannot be recycled indefinitely the way metals and glass can. It can be recycled at most 3 or 4 times, and usually is only recycled once. And the whole time it's shedding microplastics with the chemicals in them. So recycling really is just a means of delaying the time until a piece of plastic becomes waste.
Right, very interesting point. And how bad could this get if no significant action is taken right now? And who's standing in the way of making changes in the use of plastics?
Well, those are 2 questions. So how bad? It's already very bad. We see the pictures of visible plastics everywhere, and we don't really see those invisible micro and nanoplastics that are causing tremendous human health forms throughout all ages, including in utero. We are also know that plastics are a major component of climate change. The greenhouse gases from plastics are about, if the plastics industry were a country, it would be about the 5th largest emitter of greenhouse gases. And we know that those emissions are being undercounted because we don't count them through the whole life cycle. And there are also impacts to climate sinks and other aspects. So the impacts are tremendous. The costs, the economic costs, are about $1.5 trillion a year, owing to the problems with plastics, as reported by The Lancet in a report last week. And what is getting in the way of doing something about it? It is the countries, including my own, who are fossil fuel producers, who would rather deal with the symptoms of the disease rather than the root of the disease. They want to deal with plastic waste without turning off the tap and taking advantage of the economic opportunities of developing alternatives.
Holly Kaufman, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.